Hey friend, right now your guides are asking you to ask them for help. Guidance within guidance. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Guiding our reading today, we have Solace. Solace helps us to bridge between the non-physical and the physical, between the ephemeral and the formed, between our guides and ourselves, right? Solace is here as that bridge between worlds, that connection. Starting out, we have the Two of Pentacles, right? With the Two of Pentacles, you probably are kind of juggling things on your own right now. You know, you have something that you're working through or something that you're building, and you really kind of feel like you're on your own, right? You know, you're like, okay, I have to handle this situation. I have to solve the challenges that come with it. Like, you feel like you're kind of really doing things on your own. However, you also have this inspiration, this inspired action, right? The Ace of Wands. The thing that you're working on, the thing that you are growing and developing was, a inspired action, was this kind of insight or, this impulse that you felt within yourself to be able to, like, hey, go do this thing, or, here's a really good idea for you to act upon. And so there, in fact, is guidance that has come through. Maybe you need to have this more of a conscious relationship with your guides, with your spirit team, your ancestors, whoever, you connect to. It could be your higher power even. The idea here is that if you consciously choose to ask for help, that this inspiration is going to be able to come through more easily for you. You're going to get more insight about what are the right actions to take, when to move, when to rest, those types of things, right? We have the Six of Cups, right? Maybe you find yourself daydreaming, imagining possibilities. Not as much as, like the, what if I do this? What if I do that? But, where does your mind tend to wander when you're just kind of like in the moment and you're not really overly thinking about something? You're just imagining, right? You're just seeing what are the possibilities. And here is where there's an opening for your intuition to communicate, for your team, your guides, your ancestors to be able to speak through this, the daydreaming through your intuition. And this is going to help you to be able to kind of continue with the growth, right? The Eight of Pentacles, the putting in the reps, the putting in the practice. In this deck, we have the fairy girl here. She's weaving this basket, and she's got her two little mice friends here that she's showing you, like, hey, this is how you do this. And then they're taking the same ideas that she's sharing with them, for their own, things that they create for their nest. And they're also sharing ideas with her, but like, hey, what if you do this? What if you do it that way, right? So when you're putting in the practice, when you're just going through, the repetitions, doing the thing that is, to kind of get you from A to Z, if you have asked your guides for help, if you've asked your angels, your spirit team to assist you, you're going to be able to get this kind of a feedback while you're just in process. You'll get ideas, little changes. What if I do this way? Or what if I try something else entirely, right? You're going to get that kind of an insight. And you want to allow yourself to be able to look at things from a different point of view, right? We have the Hanged Fae, the Hanged Man, right? And in this deck, he's not hanging by accident. He suspended himself on purpose. He's swinging on these vines. He's very contemplative, This is where you want to get yourself into a receptivity, a willingness to be able to see things from a different angle. If you have this kind of a choice to be, receptive, to be open to new possibilities, to new ways of seeing things, that opening is going to help you, because that's going to give you the space for, your guides to be able to give you information that's going to be helpful for you. And as you're contemplating, and thinking about all the possibilities, eventually you do settle on that, that one epiphany, that one aha of like, okay, this is the action I'm going to take, right? We have the Ace of Swords. That is the clear, focused, decision-made type of an energy. So you open yourself up through your daydreaming, imagine the possibilities, instead of, just being like, what if I do this? What if I do that? You just kind of let yourself imagine, what could be, whether you think it's realistic or not. And these daydreamings, these inspirations, this is where the guidance opens up and you get that epiphany of what it is that you can do, what action you can take to be able to move forward, to be able to help you, move from where you're at now further along the path to where you want to be. And this is where you come into the magician, right? The magician's very skilled. He's got all his tools. He's got his talents available to him. You can take the inspiration that is given to you in these, moments of daydreaming, in these moments of practice, and then you can apply your skills to them, right? Maybe if, you're an artist and, you get an idea about like, hey, there's a particular piece that I can make, a particular design, a particular style, whatever it is, you get that inspiration, and then you can take the skills that you've practiced, that you've honed, that allows you to create the artwork successfully, and then you can use that. Or if you have, a business and, you have certain business skills that you've practiced, and then, you get this inspiration about something you want to try, you can apply those skills to it. And this is where this co-creation kind of comes in, right? You're asking for inspiration, you're asking for help, imagining the possibilities, really opening yourself up to be able to think about what could be instead of, the limitations. And then when you get that inspiration, you apply your skills to it. So you have that, that balance between yourself and between spirit. And this Two of Pentacles now, instead of being you juggling both balls, instead of you being the person, who is, doing all the work, you have that back and forth, that receptivity and the more active, kind of rhythm that you get with spirit gives you inspiration, you take action on it, right? In the Rider-Waite-Smith, deck, the Two of Pentacles, you would see this individual on a tightrope, right? They're balancing this bridge, this connection between your guides and yourself, or the connection between where you are now and where you want to go, might seem like this very kind of a thin rope, and you're doing the balancing act, but as long as you take your time, you're patient, and you kind of move with it, you do get from one side to the other side, and that guidance is there to help you. And this is, in fact, your higher calling. We come into judgment, right? You have the inspiration, and you choose to act upon the inspiration, and this is where you move out of, the old stagnancy into something new, into this rebirth energy with judgment. And it's not always flashy, right? We have the King of Pentacles. The thing about the King of Pentacles, even if he's not like the most exciting guy, he's not the life of the party, he is steady, he is reliable, he is still the king, right? This is a guy who's mastered his skills, who's mastered his practicality, he can take action, he's there really to be, that good, supportive friend. I'd imagine if he was at a party, he would help, the host to be able to, kind of work behind the scenes, make sure things are cleaned up afterwards, whatever it is. You come to this reliability, this stability in yourself, right? When you choose to act from the inspiration that you receive from your guides, when you choose to be open and ask for that help, and then you act upon the inspiration that you receive, this stability, comes to you. You have the ability to create the solid, reliable, consistent foundation for your experience, so that way not only do you get from A to B, when you get there you can sustain it. All right? And you don't want to get too guarded, right? We have the Four of Pentacles reversed, right? Four of Pentacles could be that structure, that miserly energy, the self-protection, right? With the Four of Pentacles reversed, this is a caution against being too guarded, right? Maybe because you are building something for yourself, we could think of the Four of Pentacles as structure. You would have the individual in the Rider-Waite, deck. They've got the castle, walls around them. They're hoarding their coins. Yes, you've built a structure for yourself, and you want to maintain the stability, you want to maintain the security, and that's fine. But don't let the structure that you've created for yourself become a block against you being able to receive help, right? Yes, you've built the thing, and now you can allow, the help in. You can allow those that are on the same page as you, those that have the same goals and visions as you, to work together, right? Maybe in the physical manifestation, you might find that your guides bring you into connections with certain people or, certain opportunities, that there is this abundance available to you. The Empress, right? The Empress is absolutely, the master at receiving. She knows that, life is abundant. She knows all the possibilities are available to her, right? We have all these different kinds of flowers. She's got the wheat, you have this receptive kind of energy, right? You've built the structure, and now you want to receive into the thing that you've created, the inspiration, the possibilities. And when you do, you get pregnant with something whole new possibilities and something brand new that, could bring you from I'm doing a little bit to I'm doing a lot, or from I'm trying to figure out where I'm at on the path to I know where I'm needed, right? Because this is all connected. All of life is interconnected. Nothing in nature is separate from anything else. And, you'll get a little bit of, insight, about the road ahead of you. We have the Three of Wands, right? These fairy boys, they're looking through this map book. Your guides can give you information about the terrain, right? It's like, hey, I would like information. I would like help with this type of thing. And maybe the help you get from your spirit team is insights about the terrain, right? Kind of that eagle eye view of things. They're, stepped back from a perspective that's not as, deep right directly in the experience as you are right now, and they can see the bigger picture, and with that vantage point they can give you information to say, hey, there's something up ahead over here, or there's a turn coming up over there, or whatever the case being. You get this insight that allows you to get the bigger picture of the map, but it is still up to you to do the action, right? The priest is this, energy of embodiment, right? This is where you've connected with spirit and you ground it down into a practical, day-to-day life type of a thing, right? You, because you have this energy of judgment, because you've chosen to act on the inspiration, because you have trusted your guides, that's where you move into this energy of the priest, right? You got the map, but it's still up to you to walk the territory. Right? Sometimes, as we're walking along the path, you have, like I said, different choices. You got, like I said, there might be a turn over here, there might be something over there, and you make choices, and regardless of whether you decide to move down one path or another, this does ultimately lead you to the successful, conclusion of whatever it is that you want to create, of wherever you want to go, right? The star, this is that wish fulfillment. And you notice that she's got her vessels here. She's got this one pouring into the water and this one pouring over the rocks, but the water does eventually make its way into the pool. So no matter which direction you take, you are going to get from where you're at now to where you want to go, right? And you have the guidance, that, inspiration, that little voice that leads you saying, hey, look, if you point yourself in this direction, this is where the goal is. This is where that end result is. Maybe if you take the left path, you can turn back toward that. You take the right path, you turn back toward that. Ultimately, you're going to get to where you're going. Yes, there are definitely things in life that we don't, expect along the way, right? In this Four of Wands, this fairy girl, she gives this egg to the boys here. you know, and they don't know what it is. It could be a dragon, it could be a phoenix, could be really anything. There are going to be experiences in life that you come up to where, you know, like you don't know what to expect, but it's all for you. It is all a gift. It's a blessing. You know, maybe if it's a difficult experience, it makes you more resilient. If it's a joyful experience, you know, you get to share that with others. You get to have that, you know, experience for yourself, that joy, that blessedness. But ultimately, the reason that we end up having experiences that we can't predict is because along the journey, we want to, you know, go ask for help, right? The Six of Swords in this deck, you have these two fairy girls. They were tending this garden, right? And this blue rose that they were tending, this very special magical rose, wilted. And so, you know, they're like, okay, who can we ask for help? And they go off to the castle here and they ask the fairy queen, hey, can you help us? This rose is wilted and we don't know how to help it. We don't know how to nurture it. And she agrees to help, right? When you have these experiences in life that maybe you didn't predict, that maybe didn't go the way you wanted, the purpose is for you to be able to connect with others, right? Maybe somebody has a skill that you don't have. Maybe somebody has strengths that you don't have. And vice versa, you have skills and strengths that they don't have. We humans, you know, and pretty much all of life, we're all connected, right? We are community. Even, you know, those of us who are kind of more in that hermit mode, you know, somebody grows your food, somebody made your clothing. You know, these connections that we have, they're intentional, right? You know, you look at your hand, it's like you don't just have one finger, you have five, unless you don't. You know, if you're cold and you put on a jacket, do your hands not want to be warm too, right? So you put on some gloves, right? All of you is connected, and you are connected to everything else around you. So anything that benefits you can benefit others, and anything that benefits others can benefit you, because in reality, we're all fingers on the same hand, or we're all branches on the same tree, right? We are meant to connect. We have this 10 of Pentacles, right? The abundance, the legacy, the prosperity, right? The sharing. When we work together, when we each bring our own talents and skills to the table, when we each, you know, help each other and rely on each other, we can build up something more fantastic that we would experience by ourselves. And that is where this all is leading, right? The world. The connection, the community, the togetherness is the entire point of it. Ask for help from your guides. Ask for help from people in the world around you, and you can build something incredibly beautiful for yourselves. All right, friend, I hope this video has been helpful for you. If it has, go ahead and leave me a like. Drop me a comment. If you don't know what to comment, please go ahead and comment me a sunflower emoji. Leaving comments helps the algorithm to continue to spread my content. If you're not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the bell notification and click on all. The algorithm these days, with its updates, doesn't guarantee you're going to see a video just because you're subscribed. Then head into my channel. I'm sure you'll find a video that resonates with you, and I will see you in the next one.